Hey everyone, it's Christy from Christy's Beautiful Life. Welcome back to 30 Days of Sketches 3. We are on to day 7 using this sketch from Hip Kit Club, and I'm really excited because it's one I've been wanting to use for quite a while. We are also going to be working with 5 photos. There's 6 there. I almost said 6. 5 photos, and they're kind of a sequence of photos taken of my 3 little ones together. This is kind of like the first photo shoot where I considered it a success. They all looked really cute, and so I tried for quite a while to get some good shots of them together, and these are the ones that I finally was really happy with, and so they're going to kind of be their first official photo shoot type photos. And I just felt like this sketch was going to work perfectly to go ahead and do that with. So I start by going into my scraps. I do store my scraps, although at the moment they're all over the place, but for the most part, I store my scraps by color, and I have them all separated and then put into separate bags. And I just found a nice soft pink one and then that teal one. The teal one I'm making just in the middle is going to be the teal one, and you'll notice that I bring that in a couple other places at the very end of the layout, so keep your eye out for that to see how I include it, and it'll all tie itself in. And the background paper I'm using is one I've kind of been hoarding because honestly I was going to use the back of it, which is little framed photos of animals. And now this is a baby collection piece of pattern paper from Crate Paper, and like I said, I've kind of been hoarding it. It's the boy collection. Remember, I don't know if you remember, but a few years ago there's a boy baby collection and a girl baby collection. Well, this is one of the papers from the boy one, but I feel like it just works really well with the kind of vibe I wanted to go to. It was nice and soft, but it had enough of a pattern that it wasn't quite too boring. I have been doing a ton of just white cardstock base for my layouts and then building up off of that, and I just wanted to try something a little bit different. I'm also going into my ephemera little tins that I have. I do the same thing with my ephemera. They're all stored by color. I went into my white one and pulled out the little, these are from Paige Evans, and they're just those embroidery hoop ones that came from that whichever collection they came from. I can't actually remember, but I love them. I really felt like they represented the hearts in the sketch just perfectly. And then I didn't care for the sayings, not that they weren't good. They definitely would have worked, but I wanted to do my own thing, and so I cover each one of them up just a little, and I play around. I wanted to add a few other things like some frames and stuff like that, and I just kept going through all of my ephemera to see what I could do. I'm pretty happy with the way it's working, so I'm going to go ahead and trace where the spots where everything's going, very much trying to mimic the way that the middle photo is right in the middle, and then all the other photos are kind of stacked just a little bit off kiltered and just a little bit different. And what I'm going to go ahead and do once I get them all traced with my pencil here, I'm going to gesso it all down so I have a nice base for it. And then I'm going to do just a tiny bit of mixed media. Nothing scary, nothing complicated or anything like that. And I'm not even using watercolors. What I'm using is this paint. It's like acrylic paint basically. And I'm just using the lid. I believe this is a Delusions paint, and it's just the pink one that kind of matched the color of the pattern paper that I chose to use to back some of my photos. Now I am making this super watery, and this is why I use gesso. Now I started by just, you can see what I'm doing there. That's not really working for me. I'm like, oh, this is going to take me forever. So I went ahead and just grabbed one of my little spatula things that I have. And I loved how that was moving the paint across just perfectly. And I'm just swiping it back and forth to make sure that it's covering where all of the layers of my embellishments and my photos are going to go. That's all I'm trying to do, is just keep in mind of where it is, and that's what the pencil lines are for. They are hard to see because when you gesso, it will take away your pencil lines. I did do it light enough that I could see it a little bit, and then adding the paint again, it did take most of it away, but I could still see it just a little bit so I could line it up at the very end. One thing I did, however, is I laid this is a really wet piece of paper right now. And so I laid it out on some really heavy books and like my chipboard stuff, but I wasn't thinking, and I should have let it dry just a little bit more before I did it, and it ripped. Some of the paint came up with it. I actually really like the way it looks, but it wasn't supposed to do that. So, you live and learn. So now I'm going to place everything back down where I think I'd like it to go and start working on each piece layer by layer, deciding if I'm going to use a frame, what I want to do. And basically the way you see it is the way it is, but I feel like it's missing just something. It's missing a pop of something. And so what I decided to do is go ahead and pull out, First I'm going to decide that each one of the main embellishments, where the circles basically are, so those embroidery hoops, I want them each to be popped up with some fun foam and my middle photo. So this gives it a nice dimension to the page, because this is a pretty simple layout. If you really look at it, it's quite basic. So adding the dimension really helps give it interest. And that's where I decided how all that's going to go. I know I want that bow on that bottom embroidery hoop, so I put that there. I know I want this little saying that says "so many blessings" on that one. So that one I kind of glued down, and I just kind of kept going like that. And then I go into this one. Now this one is the one that has like my wood grains and coffee colored and cork and all of that. And I decide that I really like this idea. I love those horses. However, I had no idea how I was going to make horses work in this. These are just really adorable photos of my kids. Like, horses have nothing to do with that. We don't live in the country. They are not riding horses. They don't really, my daughter likes horses, but it had nothing to do with it. I couldn't make that work, but it did give me the idea to pull out that color. And what I end up finding is this little chipboard piece that has the little boy on it. And I thought it would be really neat to, instead of having that top embroidery hoop that you see me working on right there, to instead go ahead and add the little boy silhouette, because this layout is the photo of all three of them, but it's a photo of all three of them because Barrett was brought into our family. And I just felt like that was a good way to kind of tie everything in, and I just really loved that. And then I popped a little cork arrow by one of the other embroidery hoops, and I use a little bit of a wood grain frame on the bottom left hand as well. So again, you have a very nice visual triangle to go with all of that wood grain type stuff. Now, I've done all the hard work. I've glued everything down. I traced everything with black pen as well. It's very, very subtle, but what it does is it kind of helps give it its grounding for where it's going to go. Another way you could have done that would have been stitching, or there's multiple ways you could have done it. I just felt like my black little pen that I had worked perfectly. It gave it just what I was looking for. And then I'm looking at this thinking, okay, I like it. I really love the way it's going. It's missing just a few little things. So I'm going to add a border strip down at the very bottom once I trim off the border strip that's already there. And this border strip is from Dear Lizzie Stargazer, and it just says a little one. And again, it has the wood grain. So I'm really, really pleased with that. So that's going to go down at the bottom, but it's still missing one more thing. And what I am going to do is that really popular Missy Whitten thing where you just cut chunks into your paper and then lay a pattern paper underneath it to make it back to the 12 by 12. And that is how I'm going to bring in that teal. So the middle teal does not feel out of place like it does currently. So I do one chunk on the upper left hand side, and then I do one on the upper right and the very top right. So it's like I don't know, you'll see in the finished image, I really, really love the way that it turned out. And with that, basically wraps up this layout. I really, really love the way this turned out. It was fun, a little bit different for me. I'm not normally one that does this type of layout where all the elements are separate. I've done a couple of them, but it is a little bit outside of the box for me. Normally I do lots of layers and everything's clustered together. So I don't know, but I felt like it worked. It was a great way to document kind of their very first photos as the three of them together as siblings. So pretty darn happy with it. I will be back tomorrow with another square theme layout, because that's kind of what this days 6 through 10 are kind of about, are the squares, and that one's really fun as well. So stay tuned for that. There's a look at my finished layout. Thanks everyone for watching, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.